Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2019 Ford F-150, we're going to be showing you how to install the Airlift Easy Mount wireless air compressor system. But before we get into that, why don't we just take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to work for you. One of my favorite parts about this setup is the fact that it is wireless, right? So you have this remote that you can use to make your adjustments. So whenever you're hooked up to your trailer, you got your heavy stuff in the bed of the truck, and you realize it's squatting down and you need to add some air, all you're gonna have to do is, dial it up till whatever pressure you see appropriate. You can kind of watch it do its thing and make sure it's leveled. So real quick and on-the-fly adjustments, as opposed to having to, get your air compressor at home, drag an airline out here, inflate the bags manually, check the pressures, come back, eyeball it, and go through that whole thing. Really speeds things up and really simplifies everything. A lot of people do wonder, are you still going to be able to maintain your manual inflation valves as well? And the answer is yes. They give you some T's that tee into that existing line. That way you can still utilize these as well as your new compressor system. This particular compressor system is one that all of us here have been recommending a lot, probably for the last year or two. I've had really good luck with them. Super user-friendly, easy to put in on just about any vehicle. And the big seller is being wireless, so we haven't had really any connectivity issues with this. It's really responsive, and you can also hook up to the system with an app on your phone through Bluetooth. So I have a couple of different ways to control things there. But more importantly, what I've noticed is on these late model trucks, they're getting fancier and fancier. You have a lot of stuff going on the dashboard. You have your screens and your climate controls, brake controllers, all this different types of stuff, and it just really makes it difficult to find a spot to mount up a traditional style air compressor gauge. Because, there's the analog ones where it's an actual gauge and a switch, to make your adjustments to the bags. Well, where are you going to put it? I mean, it's a pretty big deal. It's probably as big as this remote and pretty deep, and you have air lines running up to the back of it. There's just no good place to put it. And so having something like this just makes sense. No dash space, throw this in the glove box, in your cup holder, whatever the case may be, and you don't have to look at a big eyesore that's drilled into your dashboard. This kit is going to work with all the different manufacturers of airbags, whether it's Airlift, Firestone, or whatever else. It's not going to matter. Just tease into the lines, pump some full air. There is some stuff you can do with the remote. So let's go from 5 to 100 psi. Push up, increases pressure, down, decreases it. And like I said, it's pretty responsive. It doesn't take long to kick on, and relatively fast too. Once you get into higher pressures, it takes a little bit, but not bad. You can also adjust each side independently. So let's say left side you have an off-center load or something like that. You can put a little more air in that bag than the other side. A lot of people probably aren't going to use that, but it is there. Being that it's a dual path too, you can use this compressor with onboard air. So if you want to put a tank back in your bed to fill up a tire or something on the side of the road, you can. But if you do that, keep in mind one of the paths will be dedicated to the onboard air tank. The other path will be dedicated to the bags. So you won't be able to adjust the bags independently. If you wanted 20 pounds air in the bags, that's what you're going to get. You ain't going to be able to do 10 in one, 20 in the other. But just figured I'd mention that because a lot of people do ask it. And this is going to go up to 100 psi. So that's going to cover pretty much all the bags available, especially for the F-150. And to make things easier, as you know, with airbags, they do require some maintenance. Most of them are going to require 5 psi in them at all times, even if you're not using them. And so there's 3 presets on this remote that you can set up for particular trailers or maintenance. So usually one, set that at 5 for just the regular maintenance when you're not using it. And all there is to it. Then say if, your utility trailer, you like 20 pounds in it, and your camper, you like 30 pounds air, you can fine tune those and essentially just hit that button on the fly. You already know what works, and you don't need to mess around making adjustments. Other than that, at the end of the day, like I said, this is a compressor that we've all been recommending a lot, and that's just because it works. We haven't had any issues with these things. So super user friendly. And one of the best parts is, being that it's the easy mount, probably arguably the easiest compressor to actually install and set up. You know, everything's together, a nice bracket. The wiring's kind of pre-ran for you already, or pre-loomed. They did about as much as they could to make it as easy as possible for us putting it on. So with this particular truck, little tight mounting, the compressor body and everything, and really that was due to this truck has powered running boards, so that kind of took up some space. But once you got that in there, you're just running wires and some air lines, so shouldn't really run into too many issues. But if you like to hang around, we'll go ahead and get started on that now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here on the passenger side of our truck, at the very back of our cab. And first thing we're going to do is mount up our compressor unit. That'll be located right here in this area on our frame. Here's how our compressor system is mounted up. And bear with us here, it's really tight under here, not a ton of space. So we're going to do our best to kind of show you what we got going on. But what I did, there's a gusset or a flange here coming off of the frame for our body mount. And I took our compressor and held it flat against that. And then I drilled a hole through there and used a nut, a flat washer, bolt, and another flat washer to secure it to that. And then to be on the safe side, down here, I drilled a hole into the frame with a 1/4-inch bit, took one of the included self-tapping screws and ran that down. And with those two fasteners, this thing is rock solid. It's secure, and we're not going to have to worry about it going anywhere. What you want to do now is mount up your air filter, and you want to get this in a place where it is high and dry. It'll stay out of the weather. So this is at the very beginning of our bed, so kind of right behind our compressor. That little flange I drilled a hole in with a 3/8 bit, snapped our filter down into place, and then they give you maybe 1.5 to 2 foot of rubber hose. It has a different feel to it. That simply just pushes on to the barbed fitting there on the back of the filter. There will be a fitting just like that on the actual air compressor. The other end of the hose will just plug right into there. Now we can get our air lines sorted. So what I did, I took the big bundle, stretched it out and cut it in half. And one end is going to plug, or two of the ends are going to plug directly into the manifold here. So I got one plugged in already. And these are side specific too. So this line will feed the left side airbag, and this line will feed the right side one, or the passenger side one. So I just put a white dot there, and then on this line I put a white mark on this end as well as the other end. That way, kind of keep it organized, and we can run these lines at the same time, not have to do it twice. But whenever all these type of quick connect fittings, the one thing you want to make sure of is that you have a good clean cut, or else it'll leak. So a tool like this, or even a razor edge, you put it on a 2x4 or something. They make tubing cutters as well. You just want to make sure that the cut is straight and clean, no debris on it or anything like that. And it literally just kind of snaps right into place. You'll feel it lock in. So I got both these plugged in, and then we can start to route these lines towards the back. So ours, it comes right out, and I actually fed it through this hole in our frame here all the way to the back. And I want to mention, in a minute, I'm going to take some wire loom and put that over the hose, not only to clean it up, but where it transitions into the frame there, I just want to have an extra layer of protection. That way it don't rub on the metal or anything like that. So underneath the truck, you're not going to be able to see much, but those wires, or I'm sorry, the air lines just feed through the frame. So you might be able to see a little piece of them every now and again here. They run all the way through. The one that goes to the left side or driver's side of our truck comes out of the top here, runs over, and again, I just put some loom over it. The one on the passenger side comes out of that same opening just on this side. So like I said, our line comes out, and then I simply teed it into our existing air line here. So this is the line that goes to our air bags. And so what I did was let the air out of the system, cut the line just like we did, how I showed you with that good clean cut. Take the included T, snap the airbag lines into that, and then our compressor line will go right into the T fitting. Back underneath, the line that goes to the driver's side ends up just running straight across, going over the frame, and we have it teed in here just like we did the other side. You know, your original airbag airline, cut it, tee it, and then plug the compressor line into it. Now we can work on our wiring. So the kit's going to come with a big harness, and you can take the end with the connector on it. That's going to snap into the manifold there, push that white thing in to lock it in place. And then coming off of the harness here, you're going to have a red and a black wire. Those are going to get connected to the red and black wires coming from our compressor. So I have the red one set up already. Just use the heat shrink butt connector they give you to do that, because these are going to have ends on it, right? Little terminals. We're going to get rid of those. So to make any butt connections with ring terminals or ones like this, what you're going to do is strip the wire back. And that'll expose the wiring underneath. And with these being a little bit thinner and these butt connectors being a little bit bigger, I'm going to twist it and then just double that wire over, kind of give it the butt connector a little more to bite onto. That'll plug into the butt connector. And I can crimp it down like that. And with these being heat shrinks, come in with my heat source and seal up the ends. So down here, now that we're wrapped up, I wire loomed everything, taped everything up, zip tied it to clean everything up. And our wire is going to run up and then start to head towards the front. So you can see it there. And essentially it's just going to continue along the whole length of our frame. You know, when you do this, avoid hot or moving parts. This area, you know, you really don't have a whole lot to worry about. But I still zip tied it every now and again to keep it secure. And wire's going to go right through here and then up into the engine compartment. Now in the engine compartment, here's where our wires come up. You're going to have a pink one, a red one, and a black one. The red one will run over and get connected to the included fuse holder using the butt connector. Make sure the fuse is not installed just yet. Other end of that, you can crimp on a ring terminal, remove that nut using a 12mm socket, put the ring terminal over it, tighten it back down. That'll kind of square this one away here. The black one is going to be a ground, and so that just goes right over to the negative battery terminal. This one just gets a ring terminal there. Remove that using a 10mm, put it over, and tighten it down. So really straightforward. The pink wire is going to have to get connected into our fuse block. And they give you a fuse holder and some other taps and stuff. With this particular truck, it has these, I think they're micro fuses. And so I highly recommend picking up one of these taps from us here. It's going to make it a million times easier to get this plugged in. And so the way this is going to work, you're going to find a fuse that has power when the key is on and no power when the key is off. And you want whatever one you end up using, you can take the fuse out and you can check for what terminal has power in your fuse block. So whatever one has power, you want this part of the tap to get plugged in that side. That way power goes up and actually goes through the fuse and back down. If you run it with this one on the hot side of the fuse block, it's going to bypass our fuse there. So I'm using the 7.5 amp fuse out of our fuse box here. It goes into this slot here, and I try to use one that's not related to the PCM or the injectors or anything of that nature. This one, I believe, is for the front camera, so not the end of the world. If something weird happens, not the end of the world if you lose power to that for momentarily. But the engine, computer, and stuff, that's a whole different story. So just be on the safe side, that's what I like to do. So with that determined, we'll go ahead and plug the fuse holder in. Now with everything hooked up, you can take the fuse, plug that into the holder. Our compressor kicked on, so you know it's got power. And then pretty quickly, you want to take your remote and throw the battery in it. Because I forget, you only have a certain amount of time to kind of pair these together. So, scanned, popped right up on our compressor. We'll click on it. It paired successfully. So I'm going to go ahead and throw probably 40 or 50 pounds of air in the bags. Really let this compressor do its thing. And once it's all filled up, we can check for any leaks. Just like how you check your airbags, with this, what you want to do is come back to all the fittings that you, teed into or plugged into at the compressor. Spray them down with that soapy water, and then look for any bubbles to rapidly and continuously form. If you see that, you know you got a leak. If you don't, you know everything's sealed up. If you do have a leak, let the air out of the system, and then unplug the lines, recut them straight, make sure they're clean, and check it again. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Airlift Easy Mount Wireless Air Compressor System on our 2019 Ford F-150.